Chapter 7. Dogs Not Hogs. Back on your feet, gents. Do not tarry, milady. The knight and the foremen, and the lords and ladies and the entire procession resemble relatively quickly. A bit grumbling, and after the robbery, rather as if it had happened before. Cass got the sense that the masked woman and her band of thieves regularly set upon travelers in the area like bandits who staked out storage coaches routes in the west. Miraculously, nobody appeared to have been hurt in the fritzes. Cass slipped in among the last of the footmen and was soon following the procession down the road in the direction she hoped of the king's palace and of the jester himself. The trip took hours and the procession became increasingly belligerent. The sweat trickled down noses and made shirts stick to backs. Mud splattered breeches and filled soldiers' boots. Humans and animals alike complained of aches and pains, thirst and hunger. Despite her ghostly state, even Cass was beginning to feel the toll. Eventually, however, the bumpy road gave way to a smooth stone, and the wild countryside was replaced by carefully tended gardens. The marching formality overtook the procession. Backs stiffened, soldiers fell into stride with each other, flags were held erect. Lords and ladies, or whoever they were, in the finer clothes, stopped and primed themselves. Even before she saw it, Cass knew they were nearing the palace. While the palace was not a white and sparkly like fairy tale castles on a hill, nor an austere fortress with a moat and drawbridge, it was nonetheless grand, and certainly it was very impressive to Cass. A vast red-bricked edifice, it stretched out on either side the length of the several city blocks and boasted rows after row of white-framed windows, and blinked in the flicker of sunlight like hundreds of eyes on an enormous face. After the procession had passed through the palace outer gates and into the expensive grounds, some of the soldiers and footmen peeled away, presumably heading for the barracks, while the others escorted the more important travelers towards the twin towers. The buttress of the palace arched front entrance. Cass shivered, reminding herself that she had nothing to be afraid of, except failing her mission. She peered through the double monocle into the countryside that lay beyond the entrance. A group of dignitaries waited. Could the jester be among them? Woof, woof, ruff, ruff, bow, bow, yep, yep, grr. I'm afraid I'm not sure which of these dog sounds is exactly right. You will have to choose the one you like best. While it is difficult to recreate dialogue that took place hundreds of years ago, it was perhaps more difficult to recreate the speech of animals from any era. Did you know that in almost every language, the dog's bark is written differently? In Afrikaans, for example, bark is actually baf. In Esperanto, it's wolf, and in Swedish, it's wolf. Cass was about to follow the others past the lines of royal guards and into the palace interior courtyard, when was suddenly descended upon by a dozen barking beagles. The beagles nipped angrily at her heels, somehow sensing that the invisible girl was in triple unwelcome on royal grounds. I call these dogs beagles because of the ease of familiarity. In point of fact, however, they were Talbot hounds, a predecessor of the modern beagle. A tired-looking man in leather breeches, their trainer, Cascas, trotted up to the beagles. "Tolerance, Bailey. Hunter. What are you little grits up to? Found a grey hog, have you? Or another partridge fallen?" he asked slowly, almost as if the dogs were his master and not the other way around. No need to fight over spoils. Plenty of delicious treats waiting for you in the kennels. Come now, quick, you barking. The trainer and anyone else around it must have looked very odd at the beagles, circling for no apparent reason, pawing at the air. Her invisibility had protected her until now. Cass didn't want to press her luck. Desperate to tried to shoo the dogs away from her, a difficult task to perform without making any noise. Fortunately, the trainer was able to coax them away with a few treats he happened to be carrying in his satchel. Unfortunately, by the time all the dogs had been rounded up, the procession had disappeared and the gate was clanging shut. Cass almost missed her chance to get into the palace. Trying not to be discouraged, she started walking the perimeter of the royal resistance. Where would she find the jester? Did he have irregular work hours, or did he come and go as he pleased? She imagined being a jester was something like being a stand-up comedian, but a mobile like being a walking comedian. She remembered a red and white striped tent. Did he pitch his tent on the royal grounds, or did he hide it in the woods somewhere? Being invisible, she figured it wouldn't be too much of a risk to climb through the open window. But it was chilly out, and every window she saw was shut. She was, however, able to look inside a few windows where curtains were not drawn, and she saw some of the palace rooms. Cass knew that some people, like her antique collecting grandfathers, would have given their right arm to see the furnishing inside. But to her, all the rooms looked the same, filled with uncomfortable-looking chairs and gold-framed paintings, and were either dark and scary or silly and heathenish. Nowhere did she see a whirly man wearing a three-pointed hat with bells. After turning a corner, she noticed a stairwell on the side of the building. Walking down a short flight of steps, she found a small iron door. The first door she'd come across it since the front entrance. She tried the handle. It was locked. She turned away. The door opened, nearly pushing her to the ground. "Ow!" she exclaimed, the sound obscured by the clanging of chains. Recovering from the blow, Cass turned to see a uniformed soldier dragging a small creature out the door. A monkey, Cass assumed at first glance. A scowling man in a dark cloak persisted from the doorway. "Let him sleep in the kennels. If he will not speak, he is no better than a dog." The cloaked man spit on the creature's back and then slammed the door before Cass could slip inside. Dismayed, she looked down at the whimpering creature at her feet. "Come on, you head your master," said the soldier, tugging at his collar. "It is the kennel for you." The creature had exceptionally large eyes, and to Cass she found that they were staring directly at her. He could see her, but the greater shock was that she knew those eyes very well. "Mr. Cabbage Face," she cried out before thinking better of it. The creature looked at her oddly, as if he didn't quite understand. But she was certain of it. Although he was even shorter than it was possible than when she last seen him, and although there were fewer folds in his leathery skin, the creature in front of her was none other than the younger incarnation of her long-lost old friend, the homologous. She would recognize him anywhere, she thought. The huge hands for grabbing fistfuls of meat, the huge nose for sniffing out roasts and sweets, the little torso with a big belly for filling the meal after meal. The homologous was literally one of a kind. The reason he could see her, she suspected, was that he was not entirely mortal. The soldier drew a sword. "Who's there?" How awful to see her friend in chains. How was she going to free him? That was all she could think. Cass put her finger to her lips. The homologist nodded slightly. He wouldn't give her away. Shrugging his shoulders, the soldier sheathed his sword. Guess it's the blessed ringing in my ears again. He gave the homologist a tug. Let's go, dog. The homologist grunted in complaint, but started shuffling after him, changing only a quick backwards glance at Cass. What is the homologist doing at the palace? She wondered, silently following. And why is he being dragged to the kennels? Then she remembered the legend of Cabbage Face. In the story, the homologist's creator, Lord Pharaoh, brings the homologist to an audience with the king. When the homologist won't perform on command, Lord Pharaoh grows angry and punishes him by sending him outside to sleep with the mud and the hogs. It was possible she was witnessing the real-life event she previously only read about. In that case, Cass realized what would have chilled the cloaked man she saw in the doorway must have been the dreaded Lord Pharaoh, and the brilliant but evil alchemist who was not only the father of the homologist, but also the founder of the Midnight Sun. Lord Pharaoh, of course, was neither Lord nor Pharaoh, but rather the Swiss doctor who had renamed himself once he became master of alchemist. About Lord Pharaoh's name, you may recall that Max Ernst once asked, "Isn't that redundant, like King? Funny, isn't it?" Given the way Max Ernst seems to be repeating himself so often. As for the hogs, the writer of the story had obviously gotten it wrong. Not hogs, she thought. Dogs. It's worth noting that in his old age, the homologist himself claimed that he had denied with the king's hogs as opposed to dogs. I think the failure of the memory on his part can be best ascribed by the phenomenon known as believing your own press. Somewhere along the line, he must have read The Legend of Cabbage Face and accepting the literary vision of his life as truth.